Hey everybody, it's your Uncle Bear. Happy Friday. We all made it through the week, presumably. If you're watching this, I'm guessing you made it, right? So, and that's really all we can ask. I have had a shit week though. I worked my ass off to get to Friday without murdering people and shit like that, but I'm here. Delivered down Laredo on Wednesday. Couldn't find any freight out of there. And then Wednesday night, camped out there and started having problems with my idle. It kept dropping down on me. You know, I idled it up to 1,000 RPMs, which for you new drivers, I can't understand these trucking companies, these carriers that, you know, leave it at low idle. You know, they don't allow their drivers to idle it up. That keeps your oil pressure up. It's better for your engine to idle up the truck. And also during the winter time, it assists in keeping the engine and the coolant warmer, you know, to keep the heat warm. So anyways, I had it idled up to about 1,000 RPMs, and then about 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, it just drops down to low idle. So I idle it back up and did high idles again for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then it drops back down. So I spent about, yesterday morning I had a mechanic look at it. My air filters needed replaced, so I went ahead and replaced them. Those were about $800 after tax. And then that didn't work, so then they cleaned the sensors on the clutch and brake pedals, and it worked briefly, but then it didn't. And then last night I parked and it stayed at high idle all night, so I'm guessing it's something electrical. Son of a bitch. Anyway, so yeah, spent about $1,500, and then there weren't any loads going home, and of course my customers needs me to pick up on Monday morning, so I'm bouncing all the way from Laredo, Texas to South Dakota. Yay. Anyway, purpose of this video. So I was listening to my one of my favorite podcasts, The Voice of Gord, which is Gord McGill, and I listen to him on Spotify. I think he's on YouTube too, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I was listening to his podcast, one of his podcasts this morning, and apparently the FMCSA is taking comments until September because Secretary Duffy is contemplating adjusting the hours of service regulations, which, you know, might be a good thing. I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear. But I got to thinking about it when Gord was talking about it with his guests. You know, I was thinking about, you know, what kind of changes I would like to see. You know, but personally, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the old hours of service regulations. You know, 10 hours of driving, 8 hours off, 15 hours midnight to midnight, right? Well, they're not going to do that for us, and I'm fine with the 11 and 10. I don't like the 14. And the reason I don't like the 14 is, number one, it causes people to rush through their day, especially the newbies. So I don't like anytime you're rushing through your day, that's not a good thing. The other part I don't like about it is, you know, the purpose of all of these is so we're not fatigued, but that actually causes more fatigue, because what it did, you know, back in the day when it was still the 15-hour midnight to midnight, as a long-haul driver, I'd get up in the morning. Of course, we all have our own routines that we do, but I'd get up in the morning, go in and have my morning coffee, wake up a little bit, go out and drive for 4 or 5 hours, you know, until lunchtime, you know. I go in, eat my lunch, maybe take an hour nap if I want to, and then go 3 or 4 hours down the road and stop and have pie and coffee, and then I would get in the truck and drive until I finish my drive time for the day, stop for supper, go to bed, right? Or if I had more time, a couple more hours left on my clock or whatever to drive, I would go drive a couple more hours and then stop and go to bed somewhere. But you had time to stop, and I've always told people probably 70% of what I've learned about trucking, I learned around those old horseshoe-shaped coffee counters in the truck stops, just picking the brains of the old timers. And I would still do it today, given the opportunity. But and it also costs a lot of jobs and a lot of businesses to go under, because those mom and pop truck stops and that, they closed their restaurants because the drivers weren't showing up anymore. They didn't have time to stop and eat. They had that 14-hour clock that they were up against, and they just didn't have time to stop and eat. So a lot of waitresses lost their jobs, a lot of cooks lost their jobs, and a lot of business owners lost their businesses. All for that bullshit, right? But another thing I would like to see is, all right, a little flexibility on things. If you're within, if you're within 4 or 5 hours of the house, and you run out of hours, okay, and I've actually had it down to an hour from the house and run out of hours, and then you have to sit there and take a 10-hour break before you can drive on, or at least an 8-hour break before you drive on into the house. What I would like to see is, if you're within 5 hours of the house, let the driver take an hour or two in the bunk and then go on home. As long as he's going home for the weekend or going home for a reset or whatever, or even for just a 10-hour break, let him take an hour or two, nap, or off duty or whatever, and then go on home. That's cruel to just, I'm sorry. That's just bad karma to make him sit there like that. Another thing is, and anybody who's been out here any length of time has done it, but if there's a snowstorm or an ice storm or something like that moving in, and you get going down the road, and goddamn, I'd like to outrun this storm or go around it or whatever. And then you run out of hours, so you're forced to park, and you're looking at the weather radar, and that by the time your 10-hour break is up, that storm is going to be in full bloom right there where you are. So you're stuck, driving in this, or maybe you're going home, whatever, but you can't outrun the storm like you'd like to do, or go around it or whatever. You'd like to do that, but you're out of hours. You have to take your 10-hour break. Now, which is safer? Allowing that driver to drive a little longer to outrun the storm, to get out of its way, take a route. If the storm's coming straight to the east across I-90, and you can outrun it, and you can avoid it if you can get over to I-35 and go down towards 80, you can get the hell out of the way of that storm altogether going that way. Which is safer, to allow the driver to run a couple more hours over his clock, or to have him take his 10-hour break and drive right through the thick of the storm for the next 150, 200 miles until he can get to the area that's out of the storm. I would think it would be a little bit smarter to let him go and outrun the storm, That's just me. What do I know, right? So anyway, like I say, I don't have the link. I haven't looked it up yet. My myself, but I will definitely be turning in some comments on it. And so should you, because we all have a voice, you know? We all have a voice. They normally don't listen to our voices, but if we all stick together and make similar suggestions, maybe somebody will go, you know, they might have something there. So anyway, hope everybody has a fantastic weekend and be safe out there, okay? Be sure to subscribe to this, like it, and share it with all your friends, all 3 of them. We'll talk to you later. Be safe.